So what we are going to talk about, which a lot of agents won't talk about, a lot of people don't like talking about, is the
Maybe with
political
reason.
and economic ramifications of the fact that we have a new administration.
I am against all of the absolute friggin' chaos that has been ensuing. Yeah.
Most people in this country are libertarian. They are fiscally conservative and they are socially liberal. So you believe it's reckless.
That is a really good word.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Let's make enemies out of people who help us. That sounds very reckless. Oops.
There it is. We are keeping that in.
I didn't know you hit record.
I know. I was hoping to find a candid moment. I never in a million years thought it would be that, though. It's so funny.
It means
we're keeping it in. Go
ahead. I don't care.
That's fine. Oh, sponsored by Wawa, huh?
Always. Welcome to Moving Sucks.
We are both completely unmedicated today, by the way.
No, I'm believe it or not, I am medicated.
Oh, you are medicated. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is a podcast episode that Jen really didn't want to record. I'm just going to say it, but I did make a compromise with her, and she asked if she could say a certain phrase on the podcast.
Oh, I can't do it this early into the episode.
No, but we're
flagged.
We're gonna wait. We're gonna wait for the wait for her to weave that into the episode. All right. So what we are going to talk about, which a lot of agents won't talk about, a lot of people don't like talking about, is the political and economic ramifications of the fact that we have a new administration. So, Jen, it will not be shy about her political persuasions. I have my own political persuasions, but
they're pretty aligned. I just feel passionately against certain human beings, not certain parties. I would like to make that perfectly clear.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm kind of frustrating to talk to politically because I've always said, like, I don't believe in this like Coke versus Pepsi dynamic. I just don't think you can distill this country down into that into two groups. So I am a student of economics. I'm going to do most of the talking. That's another part of the deal. But it's really hard to talk about economics and housing without talking about the fact that we have an entirely new administration. If Kamala Harris was elected, we would, it'd probably be more like business as usual. Inherently, anytime you switch parties and then the Senate changes and there's just an ability to do things in Washington, we have to observe that, and we have to talk about why it is important to to agents, but also to the consumer.
I mean, I'm not against change. I am against all of the absolute friggin' chaos that has been ensuing.
Like what?
Let's talk about it. Well, I don't know when this episode is getting released, but it just feels as if the entire world's on fire, and I'm not going to get into this because it's going to get too disparaging on certain leaders, and that's not what this episode is about. But
yeah, well, no, that's fine. But in terms of like the uncertainty and unsettling, what are just all you have to say is like, what are a couple of the things that you find to be you find that will be or that's like creating a little bit of instability or
I mean, we just talked about it this morning when we were on our morning call. People who are using their stock funds to be able to purchase now are losing their value. People's retirement funds who need to retire this year now have an insane less amount in there. Like, there's just so much financial uncertainty going around in the market right now. And I mean, then we're in this industry, and where we specialize obviously is, home prices and valuations. And to be quite honest, not even being able to give a clear answer on that right now. Yeah. And I don't like not being able to give clear answers. I mean, we never have a crystal ball. That's one thing, but like, there's at least like okay, well, here's, here are patterns, here are trends. There's a lot of disruption happening, and I don't, and not in the best way.
Yeah.
And we're making
So
enemies. Then I didn't even touch the trade war yet. This whole like stock thing's kind of just happened. But then there's, the cost too. I've been having conversations with a lot of people about like, should I be selling my house like yesterday? And like who this is going to be affecting, and talking about trade wars with with Canada and Mexico, and that does have an impact on being able to build or being able to renovate, or
yeah.
it's not fun.
Yeah, so let's talk about the tariffs real quick. And I'm going to try to be as neutral as possible. Again, I am fiscally and economically pretty middle of the road. I'm not for massive tax cuts for the rich, but I'm also not for government paying for everything.
And for the record, so am I.
Well, here's the thing: most people are.
Yeah.
Most people in this country are libertarian. They are fiscally conservative and they are socially liberal.
But they don't what
But there's no ability for a candidate to make it through that with that platform because
and that's
it's.
so frustrating,
I
because
know.
that is literally like that's my ideal world. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen the show Designated Survivor. That's who I want to be president.
Sure.
Somebody who is like, actually, it's Josh Shapiro. I love him. I love our governor. But like just somebody who is uh, first of all empathetic, but also like you're right as far as uh economically kind of right, and socially mind your own friggin' business.
Yep. Yeah. So,
We can't
but
do
let
that.
me let me talk about the tariffs real quick. Okay.
Okay.
So the reason, one of the main reasons that we have a new administration is because that people wanted change. There is a very, very, through the entire Western world and really the entire world, there is a massive effort. I don't think any of the incumbents, meaning the people who were already in power, I think everybody got voted out. And people are discontent and people want change.
Well, they agree.
Now, we're having, at the time of this recording, we are on a Monday, April 7th. There is a lot of turmoil in the markets, um, where some of our clients are calling and saying, hey, like what's going on with the markets, blah, blah, blah. Uh, Largely things, I mean, should calm down. I mean, obviously, if they don't, then we've got another problem. But here's the thing about uh, these tariffs, all this media coverage, and all these press conferences and everything like that is that, um, in the aggregate, real estate, one of the nice things about real estate is that it's slow. It's really, really slow. Whereas, like, you have I mean, people don't realize the Great Recession, it took like 3 years for like everything to unfold and unwind. And then everyone in November of 18 or of '08 was like, oh my God, it's the big crash. But things were kind of like unraveling that whole time. And the reason I bring that up is because that unraveling was related to housing. Housing is so slow because you've got real people in these big assets. People have to get ready to sell. You need lots of sales in order to create a trend. And so, that's one of the reasons why people say it's one of the best investments you can make. And housing's kind of taken it on the chin recently because there's crypto and there's, the markets just keeps going up, up, up. And they're like, why would you get into one of these old like houses, and like home ownership is dead and you should put it all in the markets. But markets can change in a day, as we've seen. As of right now, let me look. As of right now, the market is at, so we are at 38,000. And 5 days ago, we were at 43,000. So, you take that for what it's worth. It's about 10% decline. It would take months, if not years, for your house to decline 10% in value. Like, it just doesn't happen that fast. So the tariffs are going to be very much a tool that's going to be used in order to reset trade relations in the world. But it really doesn't have a whole lot to do with housing outside of new construction. Now, if I was a new builder in Florida or Texas and I was trying to get as many houses online as I could to get rid of all this inventory that they claim they don't have, but really do, I would be concerned because Canada supplies us with lumber and Mexico supplies us with sheetrock. Those are the two most prevalent things in any house. But the play by the new administration is that we are going to reset trade relations with these tariffs. We're going to get better deals, and we're going to be able to keep jobs here, build new factories here, and in the aggregate, it's a very like kind of long term play.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the near term, there's a chance that it would raise the cost of goods and services, in the country when we've already just come through like kind of an inflation spike. So, is it the right time? I think politically and economically, those are two separate things. I think economically, I think it's not the best time to do this because we're just like trying to cool everything down. But politically, any administration that's new needs to come in and do what they need to do as far ahead of midterms in 2 years as possible. Because what they want to do, they want to do this stuff, have it settle out, become the new normal. So then when those midterms come up, it's something completely different. The issue, there'll be something new in 2026 and 2026. That'll be some other issue. Hopefully it's not the economy. But overall, this new administration was put in for change, and we've got it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't agree with the change?
Mm-hmm.
No? You don't like change?
Well, first of all, that's an entirely different question. Am I hesitant towards change? Yes. Do I do it anyway? Uncomfortably. This isn't that. This is just, again, I'll be careful with my words.
So you believe it's reckless?
That is a really good word.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
You believe it's reckless?
I do
Why?
think it's reckless. I can't get too far into it without going off on a raging fascist Cheeto head rant.
Okay.
And that's not what this episode's about. And I'm trying to keep that side of things off of the internet.
Well, just talk very cerebrally. Like, don't talk about like your opinions on the people, but like, why is the policy? Why do you feel the policy is reckless?
Okay, I can just keep it as simple as like I'm just gonna get to the trade wars, not necessarily the stock market, but let's make enemies out of people who help us.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds very reckless. We are putting a target on our back, and we are getting people who once were our allies and that we could partner with to turn against us and to then join forces with other countries to warn them against us. And that's really a terrifying place to be in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's just like, it's right now, it's these tariffs and the trade wars. And it's just like, it just feels as if it's just reckless decision making that is going to then snowball into just catastrophic events down the road. Because we won't have allies anymore because we're pissing off the people that we need, frankly. It's like, cool, you want to keep jobs in America. Okay, cool. How long does it take? Like, yeah, it's a long term, but how long does it take factories to come up to put the jobs here? And where do you plan to get to plant and like have all of these matured trees to be able to get lumber? Whereas Canada already has them and has like the friggin' more than half of its friggin' country that's filled with it, which is why we get it from there. Like, we're going to plant them here. It's going to be rushed. It's going to continue to be absolute shit material. And that's what we're going to be building houses with. Like, the houses that we're already building, the materials we're already using are complete shit. And it's not going to be safe for people. I was talking to my inspector and I was like, what do you think home inspections in the next like 20, 30 years are going to look like on these current new construction homes? He goes, oh, it's going to be bad. It's going to be in pretty tough shape. And start talking about things that I don't know the ins and outs of like types of lumber and what they used to be and what they actually are now, and the type of plywood that's being used and how it's just total garbage. But it's like, how is not having resources available to us now going to make any of that any better? It's not. And
Well,
I just
Okay.
think in any business, like, pissing people off is not the way to get ahead.
Well, there's a very interesting conversation going on right now where will there be a negotiation or will there be a retaliation? Or a combination.
If I'm putting money on it, I think it's gonna be retaliation.
Well, listen, there is a symbiotic relationship between the United States and the rest of the. I mean, people don't understand how big the United States economy is. I mean, California is now the fourth largest economy on its own, if it was its own country, and Texas is the sixth. So we have an awful lot of leverage. And also, I would challenge the idea that it's not that we're not going to get wood from Canada. It's just that we're going to reset trade relations and the tariffs that are placed upon them, and also vice versa, what they're going to place on us.
I was gonna
So
say
it's not
because
that we're like
we're
turning
paying
off the
them.
spigot. It's just that there's going to be a different cost associated with it. And is it going to be so detrimental that it's just so much more expensive where it's not that we won't have access, it's just that we can't buy it. Like people
Ri
are just not gonna buy it because it's too expensive.
Oh, right, and that's not any better.
That's not any better. Yeah, you're right. That's
I
the
mean, it's
same.
like I mean, obvious it's yeah, it's I'm not saying that, like, they're shutting us out and we are not allowed to buy it. It's more so the fact that it's just, like, it's going to just be nonsensical to do it because it's just gonna be completely priced out, and that I kind of associate those as kinda the same thing.
Yeah.
But
Now, keep in mind that there is everyone here is incentivized. This is one of the rare cases where where the profit motive of the human organism is going to prevail. There's not going to be a lot of people who are going to just sit back and be like, well, this is what the tariffs are. I'm just not going to sell anything. Like it is so complex how this is all going to play out. And even 20 years 20 years from now, people won't have a full understanding of how it's going to play out. Like economics, like are going to be people are still studying the Great Depression. They're going to study the Great Recession. Like the level of complexity of what we're talking about here cannot be understated. And is it good? I don't know. In the long term, short term, all I know is that housing is baked in. That whether you live in Florida or you live here, those are two totally different markets. We talked about that on this podcast.
you love talking about Florida and Texas.
Florida, Texas, Georgia. How long did it take your friend to sell the house in Nashville?
She's under contract, but it
Yeah,
was,
but
like,
how long?
almost 100
It
days.
was 100 days. Yeah, and it's like not in a
Mhm.
bad spot, right?
Nope.
But inventory, they've been building down there forever. Phoenix, my friend, she's got a YouTube page or whatever. I get on with her. I watch her every week. It is a buyer's market in most of Phoenix now, and that was not the case 2 years ago. So in those markets, it might be a little different for like home builders, but also for home sellers because, and definitely for home buyers because there's just so much more inventory. And if builders, it becomes too cost prohibitive to build, or they have all these houses they have to put up in the air and it's more expensive, it's going to throw chaos into those markets. But no one's building here. Like there's not like a massive building, which brings its own problems. But like largely, it's going to come down to people's willingness to buy and sell. Not, I don't believe tariffs are going to have a huge effect on the Philadelphia or like the New York or Boston, Chicago, American suburban major city markets. I just don't. I think that it
No,
might.
that's what I have been telling people is like, fortunately enough, there's homes that are being sold and bought in this general area aren't really the new construction. But if you are considering doing new construction, that's going to affect you. But the selling of houses, no, I don't. That's not going to have a massive impact other than just like people's just like everyday costs and
Mhm.
budgets. Budget is going to come into play. So I'm not going to say it's like not going to affect anybody at all. I
Yeah.
mean, just general inflation and people's budgetary constraints of, now having to put more away for groceries because of inflation and just certain other things is going to affect their budget for purchasing. But I mean, some of that's kind of going to cancel out if like rates start to kind of drop a little bit, but then they're going to be paying more for the house because supply and demand hasn't even changed at all. But
Well, we haven't even gotten into interest rates.
No.
So right now, as of the recording of this, there's a standoff between the Fed and the executive branch of the United States. So basically, what they're trying to do is they're trying to compel the Fed to lower rates. And they don't agree with the Fed has two things they watch: inflation and jobs.
Mhm.
And they believe when you look at those two things, and depending on the metrics you look at, it it might you could find two different realities in those things, which is why economists don't really know what the fuck they're talking about anyway. So, but basically, the Fed thinks inflation is still too high. They don't want to tempt anything by lowering interest rates. The executive branch doesn't agree. They think interest rates should go down because they want to incentivize more investment. But when there's uncertainty in the market like this, where basically you blanket tariffs across the entire world, and you're the number one economy, there's a chance that interest rates could go down just because of uncertainty. But it takes it's going to take a little bit longer. They're not just going to like lower Fed. They're not going to lower interest rates. And 10-year Treasury is not going to get affected by a couple bad days on the stock market. But we were on a call recently with a client, and they asked a really good question.
Mm.
And maybe we rehash
That
that.
we had to pull it out at the very end of that call.
Yeah, well, no, but I thought it was a good question. I think we both answered it well. But basically, what we were asked was, what is the effect of having interest rates fall and then the ability to buy? Like, what is that? What are interest rates going to actually fundamentally do to the market, and what does it mean for us if that happens? So, what was your response to them? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Well,
It's
why don't
gonna
you
make
do that?
house prices go up. I mean, it's gonna be similar to what happened in 2020, 2021. Started cooling off 2022, but where everybody was able, with the interest rates going down, people look at a mortgage payment over looking at necessarily a purchase price. So by the interest rates being lower and then being able to kind of open up their monthly budget for what they can spend on a mortgage, they were able to kind of like throw a lot more at it and pay more for houses. They had some extra cash and were able to cover appraisal gaps and,
Mhm.
be able to get up to that value, which is how house prices jump so high. So, people can afford to borrow more money. Um, then they can afford to spend more money, which is
Mhm.
then how they offer more on houses. And that's how things get very competitive. So, will house prices go up if interest rates go down? Yes. And
Yes.
then that's when you chime in to say, but it's going to take some time.
Yes.
It's
So
like, I
just
mean,
like
it's how it's honestly, it is as simple as like, it's not a very complicated uh process of how that works. It's very simple in the fact of the value of a house is dependent on the sales of houses similar around it. And they typically take upwards of like what, 5, 6 properties to appraise it. And they need to align to the subject property to come in at value. They'll do
Mhm.
some deductions, some additions, and come to a value. So if enough houses similar to yours in your immediate area are selling for also that same amount, then that is how the value of your house goes up.
Mhm.
But a one off, like if there's, one house sells for, like $50,000 more than it normally would have, but there's like 4 others that don't, it's not going to jump that fast by having only one property to support the value.
Yeah, so how I answered that question was more the second one, which is like what it means to somebody who's actively like searching for a house. And I tied it into the importance of getting pre-approved because just like the stock market, we just talked about the stock market, how that goes down in one day, like that has crypto goes down, but like housing doesn't. The same thing is with interest rates versus home values. It's interest rates can go down in a day. Like they really can. They can go down in a day and like really open up and save you money like in a day.
And then they can go back up in another
They
day.
can go back up. There's just more volatile, right? But housing, again, it's going to take time for those values to charge. They're like values are incremental. They're going to go up. You need sales, you need closings, you need comps. So, like, I presented it as like you have a window. Like, if rates go down, but you're already a pre-approved and you're like kind of actively shopping, like you can take advantage of that right away and not have to pay immediately have to pay higher prices. I don't accept the premise, like, in a vacuum, I guess technically, if interest rates go down, prices, like a consumer would be willing to pay more for a house. Yeah, in a bidding war, they might be able to edge up a little bit more. But overall, there's like a recklessness that buyers will avoid. So like just because they can get more, they can afford more house, doesn't mean they're going to just get completely crazy and like go way, 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 way up. You know what I mean? Like just so like let's say we had a $500,000 house and at a certain interest rate. Just because the interest rate goes down, they're not going to then just like balloon that purchase price up so the payment is the same. So it's like a little clunkier, but I think it's important for our listeners to realize that if you're out like kind of thinking about buying, kind of thinking about doing something, this volatility with this new administration could be a great thing, because if rates go down, you're going to get a lot. You can get more house, and you can edge up and get a lower rate. So what I've been telling a lot of my people to do is like, listen, let's just have like a really informal call with our lender just to see where we're at. They need to be of a certain political persuasion. Some people are on the right are really excited right now. There's other people on the left who are less excited. But in the end, I believe that there will be opportunity in housing, because there always is an opportunity in housing. Housing is one of those things where, yeah, it's not sexy like crypto. You're never going to see a guy on a yacht being like, yeah, like with his keys, like, oh yeah, just bought my house. Like that's not a thing. The reason that home ownership is the bedrock of American prosperity and American wealth is because it is slow and it is steady. It is tried and true. And there's only been, I think, 4 years in the last 50 or 60 where home prices have not either been stable or gone up just a little bit. Some years have gotten crazy. Great Recession times, yeah. In the early 90s, they went down. But as long as we don't have some black swan event, like housing is still a very, very good bet, as long as it is right for your family and right for your finances and where you're at. We were just talking this morning on Huddles about how we had a client who, they're focusing on their education right now, and that's great. They shouldn't do that, take out loans and get a house. Like, you have to have a sequence of operations, but you have to realize, man, people have been buying houses through every single era of this country for the last 80 years, 90 years. American homeownership really came out of post-World War II, but and everyone has lived to tell the tale, so it's still a good time to buy as long as it's right for you. And as long as you're doing it in a way that makes sense and it's not reckless. But I am not as concerned about the larger economic picture right now, because I think that especially outside of these major cities, like there's just not enough supply. There's just not enough supply.
It really comes down to, as far as housing goes, you need to have a conversation with people who are going to be, you can't take national data either and apply that to your local market and where you're at and where you want to go. It's literally not possible, because there's so much variability across the entire national market. It does not apply. And it's so different just from place to place. Literally, like, the market on one end of 422 is different than the market on the other end of 422. Like, you need to ignore national data. It's a really good way to get headlines. But like, you need to look very hyper focused and like where you are looking to be at. Everything is very individualized. Like I said, it can be, we can put out a blanket statement and say it's still a good time to buy. Really say it's not a reckless time to buy still, but it is very person by person. And you can't just kind of have an assumption that this isn't a good time to buy for me. Cause like, well, who's telling you that?
Yep.
Like, is it just you because you think so? But like, listen, I always tell people, I'm like, if my lender tells you and tells me this is not the time for you to do it because the people that we work with are much like us and who will say that, then you're correct. But like, go to somebody who can actually see everything right in front of you and say like, is this a good idea for you to do or not? Because it is very individualized, because it may not be a good time for you to be buying or selling, but it very well could be a good time to be buying or selling for you. But you, a lot of times, and it's nobody's necessarily fault. It's just everything we're consuming and everything we're being told is telling us like not to do something, but on what premise? It's, everybody's life and situations and wallets are so different that you can't really kind of go off of a generalized headline.
Yeah, and I would add this, especially with millennials and Gen Zers and this microwave society we live in, everybody has had to save money to buy a house. The idea that even though houses were cheap back in the 70s and 80s or the 60s or whatever, people always had to save. They always had to be disciplined. They needed
Maybe
a
a
plan.
lot less back then.
Yeah, but no, but I'm just saying, like, the principle's still correct that people have always had to land the plane and take time and be strategic and sacrifice and do the things they need to do. Housing just was never one of these things that you just like could just go get.
And
There
I
was
think too,
always
like right now it takes a lot more planning. Like
yeah,
that's fair. Yeah, it took saving back then, but now it's going to take saving and planning a lot more strategically.
yeah. But I will also add this that there is back then there was not all this noise telling you couldn't do something.
I
Like
know, I miss it.
yeah, people aren't going to do it, but just turn off your phone. Like you can go back to night. I told my mother this. Like you can
I'm
go back
not
to
call
night.
I'm waiting on calls from agents. I can't turn my phone off.
No, no, but I'm saying it's everyone can go back to 1985. Turn your phone off.
Get me an Atari stat.
Yeah, no, but like no, like you totally can. But that's the other thing is that people are being told all this negative because it's frankly what gets clicks, what gets viewership. We've talked about this a lot on this podcast. There's a lot of incentive out there in the short term thinking, in my opinion, to just tell you that it's just too hard. It's too hard. You can't do it. It's just your parents and your grandparents had it easy. You have it really tough. This victim, and I know that there's people out there struggling, and I see it every day, and I talk people through their shit every day. But that is the other thing is that this is always supposed to be something you need to plan for. You need to be disciplined. You have to sacrifice for it. But on top of that, Gen Zers and millennials and some Xers are just got this megaphone in their ear being like, you can't do it. You can't do it. It's too unsafe. These tariffs, socialism, government's coming for all your money, whatever, billionaires. And it's very, very, like, as you say, hyper local. And national housing statistics are frankly lazy, written by journalists who wouldn't know a house if you dropped it on their head. It's not a good way to quantify it. So it's got to be very individualized. So that's the end of my rant, and I appreciate you, Jen, for giving me the opportunity to talk about this. This is my spirit topic,
I know.
but it's important, and I want people to understand that economics is much, much more complicated than what you see in a 3-minute segment on Fox News or CNN. It is. So people have been buying houses for a very long time. They will continue to do so. It's a matter of whether you join the party and if it's the right time for you.
Yep. Was
All
that
right,
worth the
guys.
10 minutes of convincing me to do this episode?
Yeah, it's good. I'm proud of you, Jen. I'm glad you did it.
Thanks.
All right,
Follow, and subscribe for more of this fun economic content.
You loved it.
It's fine.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Bye.